G'day, battlers! And today we have a brand new Silph monthly meta to look at, this time looking at the Commander Cup for the month of May. So in this video, first we're going to go over what is the Commander Cup, then we're going to jump into my Meta Simplified infographic, and then at the end we're going to kind of talk about some stuff that I didn't cover in this video and what we're going to do in the future. So straight into it, the Commander Cup is a really interesting sort of cup. So basically you have to pick your team's commander out of the top 10 on the left there. So you've got Munchlax, Shiftry, Escavalier, Steelix, Empoleon, Jellicent, Bronzong, Noctowl, Alolan Marowak, and Poliwrath. So you have to pick one of those, and then you have to make up the rest of your 6-man squad with the types of Rock, Ice, Electric, Poison, and Psychic, discluding all of the bands. So Steelix, Megas, Legendaries, Mythicals, Shadows, and then Bombsnow, Galvantula, Regirock, who was actually already banned from the Legendary thing. This graphic's probably been fixed. Even Stunfisk, Metachamp, Wobbuffet, Pachirisu, Drapion, and yeah, this is a really interesting idea, so there's a lot going on. Let's jump straight into the Meta Simplified infographic to kind of figure out what is going on here, but of course, you have to subscribe first if you haven't already, but yeah, moving on. Did you get the screenshot? Okay, so we've got a couple of groups here kind of running around, and we've got those little badges, the little Commander Cup logo, which I really like, by the way. That is placed on the Pokemon that are the commanders, so you can only have one of these Pokemon on your team. You can see Noctowl kind of peeking its head up from the bottom there, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But straight into it, we have sort of 5-6 groups. We have the orange box, which includes the grey box and the white box. The grey box is those sort of dark types, anti-ghost sort of group with Munchlax. Then you've got the ghosts in the bottom left. Moving back along the top, we have the fighters in the brown box, then the grass types in the green box. Coming back down to the bottom, we have the psychic users in that purple box, and then the blue box has these water types, Empoleon and Lantern. So I think every single box here has one of the commanders, and then we have Noctowl as well, who was hanging out at the bottom, but let's jump straight into it. So taking a look at this orange box, basically this orange box is supposed to kind of combine all of the ghosts, the darks, the Munchlax, because a lot of their matchups are actually the same against the rest of the meta. So straight away you can see that the orange box has an orange arrow going to the psychic users. That is because dark types, ghost types, Munchlax with Lick, they are all a bit in confusion. Bronzong and Hypno don't stand too much of a chance, although in saying that, if Hypno can get a Shadow Ball through on a Frostlass, then that's great. But that's an energy advantage sort of game, and overall, the orange box is all going to be beating that purple box. Also, you can see there is a blue arrow coming from the water types all the way through to the orange box. That is because Empoleon and Lantern, for the most part, actually beat that entire box. There are they're not going to win every matchup. They're not completely dominating, but in general, those two dudes are taking on all 6 in that orange box. Then there's the kind of more particular matchups with the fighting types up the top. The fighters are going to really be beating those dark types, Munchlax. Normal type doesn't like counter. Alolan Mark doesn't like to counter too much either, and they kind of all 3 of them have ground type damage, which is going to be super effective. Poliwrath does not, but it's able to put on the damage anyway. And then Steelix has that steel typing as well, so really not loving it. And the ghost types, they're actually going to be beating the fighters. Again, generally, because that isn't always going to be the case. You've got the Frostlass, Jellicent, Alolan Marowak beating that Escavalier, Poliwrath, Sudowoodo, and Toxicroak. There's a lot of rock damage there, and if the rock damage can land on like a Frostlass or an Alolan Marowak, that can kind of flip it there. And there's other ways that these matchups can kind of flip, but again, just in general, we're trying to simplify the meta down here. That white box is going to be beating the brown box. So moving on from the orange box over to the brown box, we've got Escavalier, Poliwrath, Sudowoodo, and Toxicroak as before. Sudowoodo and Toxicroak being the non-commanders of the group. I'm going to talk about the commander non-commander relationship a little bit later, but that's the brown box, and they're going to be again have those matchups with the orange box, beat the dark types, normal types, lose to the ghosts, and then they're also going to be generally losing to the psychic types, the Bronzong and the Hypno. Again, it's kind of one of those matchups that isn't always going to play out that way. Like if a Sudowoodo gets an Earthquake onto a Bronzong, for example, boom boom, that's awesome. And Escavalier doesn't actually have the fighting type, so it's not going to be weak to that counter. Neither is Sudowoodo actually, but Sudowoodo still does love getting hit by the moves that are being thrown its way. But yeah, again, that's kind of a general matchup. They do generally beat the grass types as well. The grass types have got that Shiftry and Cradily in there that are both weak to counter. Venusaur isn't as weak to counter, and obviously we have Poliwrath in the fighting group. Poliwrath isn't standing up that well up against the grass types, especially these like spammy Shiftry and Cradily that are getting their grass charge moves off so fast. 3 Snarls to a Leaf Blade. It's just, Poliwrath isn't really loving it, and Sudowoodo is a little bit weak to that as well, but I think for the most part, Sudowoodo does mostly come out on top. And then Escavalier is having a great time with its bug typing as well. Toxicroak does pretty well as well. They also are going to lose to the water types in the bottom right. I think that's a little bit more consistent, where None of them really like the matchups they're stuck in. I think Toxicroak has a little bit of a better time up against Lantern and Empoleon because they're both weak to Mud Bomb. But the rest of them, I mean, Sudowoodo and Escavalier especially don't really love getting hit with a bunch of water because they've got the typings. They don't really love it. Poliwrath is going to soak it up. Toxicroak, yeah. Again, it's generalized. This is kind of the general matchups. Moving on to the grass types though, we only have one extra arrow there going from the grass types to the water types. So they're losing to the fighters, but there's a lot of missing arrows on this graphic. There's no arrow between the grass types and the psychic types. There's no arrow between the grass types and the orange box. So what is kind of going on there? It's kind of because they aren't all identical. So Shiftry, for example, Shiftry has the dark type. It's able to get these foul plays off fairly quick. That's obviously going to be really good up against the ghost types. But then in the ghost types, you also have something like Froslass, Null, and Marowak. They're going to be doing heaps of damage to grass types. Like Venusaur hates those matchups. I think actually the Venusaur versus Froslass matchup is still like a CMP tie sort of scenario. So like they're both getting their charge moves at the same time. And it's just whoever gets that last one off after both shields have been burned is going to take that one out. But yeah, it's just not great. But then also, there's Jellicent in there. Jellicent really doesn't like any of the grass type matchups. So it's very back and forth with the ghost types. And then with the kind of darky, steely, normally dudes, it's also a little bit unclear. Venusaur has some good matchups in there. Cradily can do some stuff. It's just not really clear cut either way. I guess the deal is those dudes in the top left and the ones over in the top right are kind of all neutral. Like they're not really hard winning, hard losing a lot of stuff. It's kind of just, yeah, they can kind of play their way through a lot of matchups. Like Alolan Market's getting to its charge moves in pretty interesting fashion sometimes. So, you know, it's got a whole bunch of energy here. Steelix is getting a bunch of energy here. Does it get the Earthquake? Does it get the Crunch? Shiftry, are we going for Leaf Blade? Are we going for this? That sort of dealio, and Cradily getting its charge moves quick as well. But then the no line between the Psychic types is a little bit the same. Because Venusaur has this poison typing, it really hates those matchups completely, but then Shiftry, again, has that dark type, has that foul play, so it can do really well. So it's kind of just a case of, maybe we could have split up Shiftry from the Venusaur, potentially, but this is kind of how the graphic kind of panned out, and I do think it's kind of clear enough how things are going to go. Put a little bit of thought to it, and it should kind of be clear enough what should be going on here. And then the water types, we actually only have that one arrow coming to the grass types. Then we have the arrows beating the fighting types, beating the psychic users, and then beating the entire orange box. So that kind of makes it feel like the water types are like, you know, this OP force in the cup. But that isn't quite the case, because it's not like technically they are winning a lot of these shield scenarios. But mostly the one shield. Generally, if you get to other shields, it's not as great for the water types. It's just in general, the water types are winning. But then there's lots of stuff like if Toxicroak is getting a bunch of mud bombs through onto a Lantern, that sucks. If Hypno is getting a bunch of thunder punches on, that sucks. If Bronzong gets a bulldoze, if Alolan Marowak gets these bone clubs off or whatever, there's lots of ways that the water types are being punished. So it's not as clear cut as water types are beating the entire meta except for grass. Whoop-de-doo, we have won this thing, just bring water. And that is actually one of the things that is not on this graphic as well, the electric types. So stuff like Alolan Raichu. Alolan Raichu is going to have, I think it could have some play in this meta, and the water types are obviously really not going to like that at all. But yeah, before we jump into Noctowl, I just want to kind of go through the commander bits in these boxes. So over in the grey box, in that dark Munchlax sort of role, we have the commanders Munchlax and Steelix, Alolan Marowak being that other pick that isn't a commander. Now, I was going to say, you could kind of go Shiftry as another pick, because it's kind of got that dark stuff as well, but Shiftry is another commander, so Alolan Muck is maybe a pick that people might go for if they don't have any of those three commanders, potentially. Or you could kind of go for a more neutral sort of coverage way to go about it. Then in the Ghost Box, you have Alolan Marowak and Jellicent with that fancy commander badge. Froslass getting through this time, so I think Froslass is probably going to be pretty huge. I feel like Alolan Marowak and Jellicent might get dropped a little bit by the wayside, just seeing as they're so easy to replace with a Froslass. And Froslass being such a good Pokemon, it definitely feels like my initial prediction is that Froslass is going to be a very big player in this cup, and people aren't going to go for those two picks unless they really want to boost their coverage and maybe Alolan Marowak still has play. I don't know. But over to the fighters, we have Escavalier and Poliwrath with the commander badges with Sudowoodo and Toxicroak in the rear. Poliwrath, I don't know if it's going to have much of a place in this meta, to be honest. I don't really see it doing too well. I probably wouldn't have put Poliwrath on this graphic if it wasn't for the fact that it was a commander. Actually, I didn't at first. I was kind of like, oh yeah, Poliwrath is a commander. Why haven't I looked at Poliwrath yet? Oh, it's pretty low in the PvP Poke rankings. It's not really... It's losing to a lot of good stuff in this cup, I guess. So, I don't know if Poliwrath's going to have a lot of play. Escavalier definitely might. And then Sudowoodo and Toxicroak aren't the best Pokemon in this cup by any means, but they might just be used to have that counter damage without having to use one of your commander slot, or your one commander slot. Then we've got the psychic uses where Bronzong has the commander badge and Hypno doesn't. I think people are going to use Hypno, to be honest. I don't really see people like... Hypno is another super powerful mon. We saw it in like the cup that we're going through right now, the Prismatic Cup. Almost everyone has Hypno. It is one of the 2 most just dominant picks in this cup after Talonflame. Like, you know, it's the second most popular pick, Hypno. And Bronzong isn't doing too much extra special. Like, it has Payback, which can hit back against like the Ghosts and the Psychics, but like Hypno already has Shadow Ball. So yeah, I don't know about Bronzong either. I feel like Hypno is pretty good as well there, but maybe you want Bronzong with like a Payback Bulldoze scenario and can do something there. Not sure, but Grass types, Shiftry is that one with the Commander Badge who is kind of like a Dark type, but is, you know, also doing a lot of this role that the Grass types are doing. Maybe could have combined these in some way, not too sure. Maybe Shiftry would have gone better in the Dark type slots, then we would have been able to have some more clear areas with the Grass types things. But it is too late for that, ladies and gentlemen. We're right into the thick of it. And then, yeah, Venusaur and Cradily, both are really good Pokemon. Cradily, like, I think Cradily is probably the best, just because Cradily is like really good at getting that energy generation sort of deal. Like it's good in any cup that it's in, kind of like Frostlass. Jake Does Hurdles video from months ago really just kind of showed me how good Cradily was. Then Water types, and Empoleon's got that Commander Badge, and Lantern does not. And again, from the Prismatic Cup that we've just gone through, Lantern is it's a pretty good Pokemon. It can take a lot of hits. It doesn't get to its charge moves too quick, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. So I wonder if maybe people might even ditch Empoleon as well. Maybe. I feel like the Commander roles, I think Commander Munchlax and Commander Steelix might be, maybe Commander Munchlax might be the top pick is my, or maybe actually Shiftry or Munchlax. They're my 2 picks for initial thoughts. Who might be the top commander picked. And then we have Noctowl down the bottom. Noctowl is a very strange Pokemon in this cup. It kind of like, it doesn't neatly fit into any of these roles. Like you might just pick the grass types for say. You might go, okay, Noctowl surely beats all the grass types. Cradily beats Noctowl in some shielding scenario, so it's not even that hard cut. Like Venusaur and Shiftry are obviously pretty good, although even a foul play from Shiftry does more damage than you would think. I found that in my Prismatic Cup win video from a week or so ago. It really does more than you would like. If you get hit by 2 foul plays, you might even lose that matchup. So it's really rough there. The fighting types, fighting versus Noctowl is one of those weird things where like it's counter, it's got a normal type, but it's also got flying type, so it's taking a lot of damage, but then it's doing some back, and then it can get hit by like a Rock Slide from Sudowoodo, or get hit by a Dynamic Punch, and that still does heaps of damage, so it's like, it's kind of weird there. The Dark types, it's like Steelix is a big tank, doesn't care about Noctowl at all, can do a little bit more neutral damage against Munchlax and Muck. The Ghost types, Frostlass is just wrecking Noctowl, whereas Marowak can't really do much at all. The Psychic types, Bronzong again has that buff Steel typing, and then Noctowl can do a little bit better up against that Hypno. And then Empoleon and Lantern, I think they maybe both beat Noctowl. Not certain about the Empoleon one, but Lantern is beating Noctowl. I feel like Empoleon does. It does have that steel typing, but also it's not like the tankiest. I think it wins. But yeah, overall, Noctowl is kind of just I think Noctowl is going to be a pick that you might go for if you need some coverage. So potentially one way to go about building a team in this cup is going to be focusing on the 5 and then kind of picking your commander to suit your team of 5. Or you can obviously go the commander route and then build around that. I'm probably just going to go basic, pick a commander that I really like in this cup. But yeah, something else I didn't talk about in this thing was the ice type. So there are a couple of other ice types running around that are not Frostlass that might have some play as well. Snowy Cat's Form is high on the initial PvP things, but Snowy Cat's Form's always weird because it's like, it's not that great because it only has ice moves. It doesn't do very well. Frostlass is like always better, so... yeah, that's why Snowy Cat's Form didn't really make it onto this graphic, but there are other ice types running around that you might want to go for as well. That is my Commander Cup Meta Simplified. If you want to go check out my battle video where I do a battle with every single one of the commanders in this cup, trying out all 10, you can click that video up there, or it'll be linked in a minute that way. I feel like that way is like, you know, progress in the video, sort of like that's where the progress bar's going. Yeah, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one. Thank you to my patrons and supporters over on Twitch as well, because these guys are super cool. And yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video. Obviously, you can watch the videos over there as well. I really need to figure out this direction thing. But yeah, hopefully that battle video got up at the same time as this one. yeah, see you in the next one.